Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about how the Democrats could potentially see an electoral landslide across the board in the presidential election, as well as the Senate and House races, just a complete really sweep across the board of Congress and the executive branch. Because, not necessarily their path to victory for doing this, we've talked about that a lot, but really how it is a possibility somehow. Despite this being such a partisan and bitter time in American politics, I think that, in these past three elections, if there is an opportunity for the Democratic Party to really give a crushing defeat for the Republicans, it would absolutely be this presidential election year, 2024. Not 2020, not 2016. It would be now. So we're going to look at a bunch of factors that could drive this, and really, how Kamala Harris would be able to just sweep the battleground states, just really get an electoral landslide in the 2024 election. So, the main factor that I believe is something that the Kamala Harris campaign loves to see and, loves to think and keep in mind is the fact that the 2022 elections were so successful for Democrats, because these elections, these midterm elections, were really like no other in modern American history. I mean, if I have the results here, the Democrats somehow expanded their majority in the Senate from 50 seats to 51 seats, and while they were expected to lose some 40 House seats, they only ended up losing like 15 or something insane. Despite, the Democrats having the presidency, despite them having an insanely unpopular president at that time, Joe Biden. So it was a huge shock to the system when Democrats way overperformed expectations in the 2022 midterm elections, and it really goes to show, how these elections are really not like, elections in the past, how there are new people turning out in these elections, in these latest elections for Democrats, and it shows ever since the Dobbs decision. Democrats have outperformed in every single race practically. I mean, just take a look at the 2022 results. For example, in the state of Arizona, Mark Kelly, the senator, the Democrat, he won by 5%. The polls on election day showed him up by 1.5%. It was getting incredibly narrow towards the end. Of course, the most famous example probably is the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, the polls right before Election Day, right after that disastrous debate for John Fetterman, Dr. Oz took the lead. He was expected to win by 0.5%, but just take a look at the results. John Fetterman won by 4.9%. It wasn't even that close in the end. I don't even know what the polls showed in Georgia. They don't even give us an average here, but whatever. These are the runoff polls anyway. But also the gubernatorial elections, those were even more, more dead wrong when you look at what they showed. So, for example, in the state of Michigan, a critical battleground state typically, Gretchen Whitmer was only expected to win by 4.8%, a lean margin. And then when you look at the actual results, let's see if we could go to governor elections here, she ended up winning by 10.5%. She overperformed by double what she was expected to win by. And then in Wisconsin as well, we had Tony Evers, the governor. He was expected to lose by 0.4% to the Republican. He ended up winning by 3.4%. Across the board, Democrats way overperformed what they were expected to bring. And the polls, as you can see, as I just showed you, the polls simply failed to capture the surge of, I'm not going to even say Democratic turnout, it was the surge of liberal pro-choice turnout. This issue is the abortion issue is incredibly important to voters across the country. I mean, all across the political spectrum, the women turned out for Democrats in 2022 because Democrats ran their campaign on that. And, even better, for the Harris campaign, they have been, very smartly, they have been running this campaign not only on abortion, but just freedom in general. So, that is going to appeal, of course, to women who of course, value the abortion issue, but also, to men. To men who, when you frame this about a freedom question, it becomes much more relevant to them rather than just abortion rights. So that was the key to victory. It really was abortion. Let's just, get that out of the way in 2022. It was abortion. That's why Democrats outperformed expectations so much. And the Harris campaign running very similar campaigns to that in 2024. And it's showing. It is already showing. The excitement around Kamala Harris is already showing. When you look at voter registration, these are actual numbers, not polls. These are numbers from the Secretaries of State's offices. This is the voter registration in 2024 among these key demographics, again, in 2024, that is compared to this time period in 2020. Young women registering 83% more, Black Americans registering 86% more, young women registering 98% more, young Latinas registering 150% more, young Black women registering an astonishing 175% more, almost triple that of 2020. Just insane numbers for Kamala Harris. No one could have expected to see numbers like this. And this is not getting nearly enough attention because, again, these are the actual numbers. And it shows that we are heading towards a situation like 2022 because the only metric that revealed any indication that Democrats could do really well in 2022 was voter registration numbers. Women were registering in such high numbers. That was the only key. The polls were dead wrong. So I, personally, would follow these set-in-stone voter registration numbers. These are so important. And, especially when you look at these demographics, you've got young women, sure, but Black, Latinos, women, that is going to spell success in the Sun Belt. So, when you look at the Sun Belt, if she's able to hang on to New Mexico, Minnesota, Nebraska second, Maine at large, New Hampshire, Virginia, like she is expected to do, you've got a handful of battleground states left, and I believe that Harris could carry not only just the battleground states that Biden won in the 2020 election in the Sun Belt, that's Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. She could expand on all of those margins quite easily when you look at these numbers. I mean, just look at the numbers. Even if you have a slightly depressed turnout among white men in the rural areas in a state like Georgia, black women voter registration up almost 100%. It's almost double. Your votes are going to be, you're going to run up your votes if you're Harris, if you see these numbers in and around Atlanta, and that is where it matters. That's where the mass of votes are. And then, again, with these numbers, it is not out of the question that you could carry North Carolina, even in 2022, with an insanely unpopular president, that being Joe Biden, who now is not a candidate. Not only that, he is much more popular than he was then. Even then, in 2022, Democrats came very, very close, within 3.2%, against a much stronger Republican candidate, Ted Budd, than is Donald Trump, of course. We also have to keep that in mind in some of these Senate races. And then, you've got Texas, you've got Florida, states where the polls are narrowing so much. I mean, not governor. We need presidential polls. In 2024. Now they're actually giving us an average now, which is nice. Trump only ahead by 4.5 on average. It's getting narrower. Not too long ago, he was ahead by 6 on average. But look, the latest poll from Emerson College with The Hill only shows Donald Trump up by 3%. You had, you had Beto O'Rourke with not a great performance, but definitely solid. I mean, and this is only a state that's becoming more Democratic every year. We have to remember that. For a Kamala Harris electoral college landslide, Florida and Texas would be key to that. And then if you are able to hang on to the Rust Belt states, which I'm sure she will, and Donald Trump takes Maine second, Ohio and Alaska, that is almost 3/4 of electoral votes. That is 389. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance at 159. That right there is, in fact, an electoral landslide. And that carries down ballot, and that is so important. I mean, if you've got Harris, winning by healthy margins in Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all these Senate candidates who poll even better than Harris in their races, they're likely to win by very healthy margins. That's 5 critical Senate seats already just there. And if you have Harris winning in Texas and Florida, then you absolutely have Colin Allred flipping Texas, Debbie Mucarsel Powell flipping the Republican seat in Florida, because they're definitely going to outperform Harris. I believe that. Presidential elections, the presidential election, it looks like, is slightly more Republican in these states than the Senate races. And then, when it comes to the abortion issue, I do want to bring this up for Texas and Florida, as well as these other states, or the freedom issue, I should call it. An abortion referendum won in the state of Kentucky in 2022. It won in Kansas. It won in Montana. If you don't know, these are deeply Republican states. In 2020, Kentucky voted for Trump by 25, Montana by 16, Kansas by 14, but Kentucky, 26% Trump won by. A pro-abortion referendum won in the state of Kentucky. So that just shows you how, how much voters are on the pro-choice side when it comes to these issues. And again, this wasn't an issue in 2020, right? Biden couldn't campaign on this. Now Harris can. If Harris can, just slightly outperform Biden's 2020 numbers in a state like Montana, and you have John Tester, the incumbent Democratic senator, fighting an uphill battle for re-election, if he is, if Harris is running a few points better than Biden, then there could be enough split-ticket voters who just turn out to vote for Harris, who had never voted before, Harris and Tester, I should say. Then you could have Montana staying in Democratic hands. I think that Ohio will stay with Sherrod Brown. And then there's always the possibility of a upset, wrong tab, always the possibility of an upset. A non-internal poll from Nebraska showed not the presidential, but the Senate race. This is the Senate election. You're going to be shocked by this if you haven't seen it already. But in the Osborne, who's an independent, versus Deb Fischer race, shows Dan Osborne down by 1% behind the incumbent Republican Deb Fischer. That's huge. You can just see in the same exact poll conducted in the same exact time period, Nebraska they also have a special election in Nebraska, complicated. And in the same poll, it shows that race, the Democrat is down 17, so it just shows you how well Dan Osborne is doing in that race. So, if there is that upset that no one's expecting, you get Democrats somehow at a 53-seat majority in the Senate, and you can just imagine, I won't bring it up, but you could just imagine how much they would crush Republicans in the Sun Belt. So there it is. That is the path to victory for Democrats in the 2024 election. Not just that, the path to an electoral landslide. What they have to do, they have to keep running on freedom, and they have to replicate what they did in the 2022 elections. That's exactly what they have to do, because, we always talk about how Trump was underestimated in polling in 2020 and 2016, but ever since 2020, Trump has been overestimated in polling. In almost every single Republican primary state, he was overestimated in the polling, against Nikki Haley and all the other candidates. In the 2022 elections, the Republicans were way overestimated, right, compared to how they actually performed. So, this is it. This is how they would do it. Again, presidential race, 389, 149. Senate, 53 to 47. That's kind of their max right now. Not to mention all the margins of these states. I mean, Ohio would be extremely close. Maine 2nd would be extremely close. All these things. So, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before the election. So, if you could help me out with that, that would be great. Again, thank you very much for watching. I will see you all next time.